Hi everyone! Today I wanted to show you very quickly how you can make an object that rotates to look at something you're holding. We'll go ahead and dive right into to see a working example of this. Stop by the Night Hemisphere in the Tomato Galaxy, a brand new adventure that we've recently launched. You can see this amazing aesthetics designed by Rexrod and many other amazing creators. But over here to the right, underneath this Ferris wheel, you'll find there's a little bicycle. Apologies, there's a little bit of lag here in build mode, but this example is so cool. If you grab this wheel, it's going to rotate where your hand's at, and that's our goal today, is to make something that looks like that. Now what you'll notice is there's an invisible grabbable object, so you can't actually pull your hand further away, and we can also put it in closer and do all sorts of like this and that, but it's always looking towards the hand. Now this is important to note that it's keeping along one axis, so that's another method that we want to look at today. And then over here, we've got another example of this where you can use it to create a lever, right? So if I grab this with two hands, I can pull it down, and there it works just like a lever. And in the Tomato Galaxy, that causes the Ferris wheel to get started, which is super duper cool. Again, it's a little buggy in build mode. If you weren't aware of that, animations are kind of jittery in build mode, so what you want to do is publish your world to see them working flawlessly. But I took you here today so we could actually build this script. So the first thing we're going to do is head to the script tab and go ahead and click stop so we don't accidentally mess something up in here. And once the world is stopped, we're going to go and grab a brand new script gizmo. Here we go. And then I just kind of want to sketch out and mock out a couple things. So we're going to start with a very simple demonstration that explains some rotating towards a position. And so what we want to do is grab an arrow so we can visually see it. We also want to grab this cube and maybe another cube, but we'll create that in a second. So this is going to be the arrow that looks where we want it to look. And you're going to notice there's a couple things that are important here. The Z plus is the forward direction of this object. The Y plus is the forward direction of this object. And so what we want to do is make an object that's forward direction is this Z plus value. And we don't really need to worry about the upward direction, but that will be very important in just a minute. So I'm just scaling this to look a little like an arrow. And then we can grab this guy, scale him down, and snap right there. Now this is the important part. When we make this group, we need to select this guy first, then select this one. And that's because that'll take the orientation of this object when it's selected. And this one you'll see has its Y facing this way. So that's the upward direction, and it's Z facing down. So we need to select this guy first so that the forward direction is now right here. You can see Z plus and Y plus. We're then going to thumbstick to the left to group those together. And now we've got an object that we can kind of point where we want it to point. So with that, we're going to create a script that basically runs on this and constantly looks towards this object. We can then go into this cube and make it interactive and grabbable so that the player can grab this object. And this is just for a quick demonstration. So then we'll go to our script one here, and we're just going to really quickly give it a good name. Arrow points. Okay, whatever. That's not a great name, but it's an okay name. So we're going to go ahead and delete when world is started, and we're going to the variables tab to create a couple new variables. I think we only need one actually. And the only one we need is to know where the cube is at. So we type in cube and click confirm. Or if you had a better name for it, like it's an apple or whatever it is, I did recommend doing that. And so what we want to do is on update. So we're just going to drag this over. And like I said, we're making this super duper simple for this demonstration. So then what on update does is it's from your events tab and it runs every single frame. So it's running 60 times per second, which is ridiculously fast. But what that allows us to do is grab our rotate to, drop that in here. And so we're going to rotate self, which is the arrow, to a rotation. So I'm going to delete the current rotation that's in there. I'm also going to go over to our arrow here real quick and attach the script so that we can see this working. So we grab arrow points. We do need to reference this cube. So we'll go ahead and grab the cube pill here, drag that into the variable reference that was empty. Now it says cube. You can also see this string that attaches to it. And you can go both directions. So I could have grabbed from here and dragged to there. Okay, so we've got this linked in, and now we need this to point at this cube. So I'm getting some overcapacity notes from the server, which is kind of funny. This world is built just to be like the most magnificent at capacity world. So that's okay. It's not going to be a big problem because we're deleting it when we're done. So then the next thing we want to do is go to the operators tab and scroll down to vector math. Under vector math, you're going to find LookAt. Kind of makes sense that you'd use LookAt, but honestly, I was so perplexed when I saw LookAt the first time. I was like, how in the world does this work? And so the way it works is we need two values, a forward direction, which is telling it where to look at, and an upward direction, which is telling it where the up should look at. So when you think about looking in this direction, this y value could be anywhere in this 360 degrees. So there's two values you need to provide it. So we're going to go ahead and start by giving it a default up of 0, 1, 0. This is a value that I use all the time. You're going to see it in a lot of videos, and simply it's non-zero. And that's just important because if it was at 0, it could cause some like spinning randomly. So 0, 1, 0 works really well, and it just constantly tries to keep this y value pointing upwards because 0, 1, 0, it's basically telling you it wants to point upwards. Okay, so we've got our up typed in as up. And then our forward needs to be the position of self minus the position of the object we want to look at. And sometimes I get these backwards, so I say it with utter confidence, but I'm totally scared right now. So we're going to go bring this minus symbol from the top of the vector tab, from the top of the operators tab. And then scrolling down to object, we can grab position of object, which we're going to duplicate into both slots. You can thumbstick to the right to duplicate. So now that we've got this in here, we need to take position of self, so we can duplicate that into there. If you're not very good with the duplicate tool, you can also get this value under the values tab, similar to how we go to the variables tab, where we're going to grab the cube pill and drop that into here. And that is all we need to do. So we'll go ahead and hit play and see if I got this backwards. Script and play. Oh, I did get it backwards. Oh, I should have known. So we'll go ahead and hit stop. And then we're going to do that one more time. And so what I'd like to do when I make a mistake that's reversed is I'll duplicate the code block like this, and then I'll drag one to here, and then I'll drag one to there, and then I can delete the extra code block from above, and then we'll just go ahead and hit play. We're also going to come into the world like this, and we can see that it's oriented. And so what's cool about this is it's going to freeform rotate always towards this position. And on update is good enough that it sometimes looks really decent. I do, like I mentioned, there is some lag here in build mode. This is probably less laggy in play mode. And so when you're going to see an issue is when you point straight up. And I'll show you that real quick. So when you get 0, 1, 0 as your up, because it's not pointing outward in any specific direction, it'll start to do this kind of spinning when it gets to the top. And that's because the upward direction is trying to point up, but it can't point up because the arrow is pointing up. So anyway, that's just something to be aware of. It's not super important for most things, but just something you should know. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the world one more time so we can do this last little bit here. And so this next thing that we want to do is we want to rotate it, but we want to maintain its axes. So I'm actually going to bring it down here, and you're going to think about this being like a little spinner on a table perhaps, or something else. Maybe it's a character that looks forward at a player, although I kind of like this method for looking at players and using LookAt. But with this, we want it to stay in this direction. And the easiest way to do this is to, I guess we'll just ungroup it. Okay, there's two methods. So one, we could ungroup this and remember that the upward Y of this cone is pointing this way. But what we want to do is we want to get the Y value on the tip of this cone. And so what I often do is I will zoom into the group using this zoom in button up here. And then once we're inside of the group, I know that my up is pointing this way. So I'll select this and then rotate it 90 degrees using my snapping tool turned on. So that's on the left hand. You can turn that off and on by pulling down on the thumbstick. Now with that done, I need to make sure to let go of it. Once it's let go, we can then zoom out. And just to quickly show you what I meant, see how this one has its Y up? So I was thinking if we made the grouping, we could have selected the cone first, which would have given it the orientation of the cone to begin with, and then the cube would have just been ignored. Or we could have just oriented the cube differently. We can then go ahead and click the zoom out button to exit the group. And now our Y plus is pointing this way. And now this might not make a lot of sense, but you will see why this is important, because now our Z plus is pointing down. It doesn't matter if it's pointing up or down or left or right. Actually, it does. It needs to point downwards. Basically, what we want to do is rotate along our forward direction. And so if we rotate along this way, we can rotate like that. If we rotated this way, where the forward direction was pointing towards me, then we'd rotate like this. So that's important. So we're going to go ahead and click undo. We'll maybe demonstrate both of those things here in just a second. And so what we want to do is change this up quite a bit to the point where let's just go grab a brand new one. So we're going to go to the motion tab, grab rotate 2. We do want to rotate towards a LookAt, but we're just going to go back to the operators tab, scroll down to vector math, grab a fresh LookAt. And so in this version of the LookAt, we want to rotate the up value, not the forward direction. And so if we scroll back up to the objects, you're going to find forward direction of object, which we can then just put into here. And then we just put this as forward direction of self. So we're not rotating the forward direction. We're keeping that the same as what it currently is, but we are rotating the upward direction with the same looking at the position that we used before. So we'll just drag that into the up. So that's our position of cube minus position of self. We can then delete this one from here. And now when we hit play, this should rotate along only one axis. And so we can grab this and you're going to see it's going to only rotate along this axis. It doesn't matter if I go up. It will get kind of funky if I go in the center there, but for the most part, this is fabulous. And again, it is a little bit laggy here in build mode, but this will work great in publish mode. I'll also show you a quick trick to smooth this out if you are getting some issues. Maybe you've got like 100 of these or something. You can't actually have 100, but if you did have a lot, you might need to. So then what we wanted to do real quick was demonstrate how you could rotate along the other axes by simply rotating the arrow 90 degrees. So if we rotate this 90 degrees here, we've now reoriented our forward direction. And so when we hit play, it's going to rotate on the other axes. And so there you go. You can see it rotates like that. So very, very cool. That I hope will help you guys out. The last thing I'm just going to show you here real quick is down here in the arrow points. We were using rotate to instantly. So if you go to your motion tab, you can use rotate to over time. Excuse me, rotate to, make sure it's rotate to, not rotate by. And this will allow you to smooth your rotation out. So you might have seen how both of these were running a little bit slower. We actually made this one intentionally slower so that you had to hold your hands on it to pull it down. And then we do a distance check to make it break out of your hands if you pull too fast. So you really have to use all of your strength so it feels really intense. And then over here, it's a little less it's more lenient. But yeah, basically you can see that's how that worked. And you'll also notice we have objects that are overlapping with that. And same thing here, right? So that's what you're grabbing onto. Okay, so with that all looked at, I did want to show one very last trick here, which is that often I do not recommend using on update because it runs too frequently. And if you've got a lot of animated things in your world like this, it's likely it could slow down your world. So what you want to do is say when world is started and then do when event is received. And we're going to create a custom event loop. So then we'll go grab send event with delay, drop that into my event. And then we'll grab send event to object. So when world is started, we want to start immediately. So we send my event to self. Then when my event is received, we send my event to self after, let's say 0.1 second. So that means it'll happen 10 times per second. We can then grab this rotate self, but we want the rotate self over time. So we go to the motion tab to grab rotate to over time, dropping that into the my event. And this function is very similar to on update, but instead of 60 times per second, this is only running 10 times per second. And so then we're going to rotate this with a delay of 0.3. So that should smooth it out very nicely and also pretty fast. And then we can delete this. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one, sorry guys. For some reason, I thought I grabbed rotate to, but it was actually scale to. So there's rotate to over time. And we'll just drag that number up into there, delete this one. And then this rotation is just this LookAt. So we just drag this LookAt down to replace the rotation, delete this entire on update event. And now we have this set up. Now it's important that you rename this event. So you drop down and you can give this a better name. So you could click new event and call this rotate loop perhaps. So like rot loop, or you could just call it loop. The better the name is, the easier your script will be to use later. Also, once you've typed it in one time, it'll be in the drop down. So we can just scroll down to R. You won't have nearly as many of these if you don't write a lot of custom events. But because I've written a lot of custom events in here, you can see there's tons of events on other things. There we go. So there's our rot loop going off. We'll go ahead and hit play, and we should see this functioning. Oh, it's already functioning. I forgot to hit stop world. My bad. It's not a problem, but it is a really good practice to make sure the world stops so you don't cause issues or funkiness to happen. Okay, so here we go. So you can see, there it goes. There's a little bit of lag there. If we change that 0.3 seconds down to like 0.1 or 0.2, it's going to be a little bit faster. There we go. And so it's kind of following with a little bit of delay, which I kind of like in some respects, but it's also maybe not exactly what you'd want. So you might want to change it to like 0.1 seconds. And yeah, so there you have it. That is everything you need to know about rotating along axes. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments. Please join our Discord channel where this question actually came in from. Encourage you to join us there. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in Horizon. Bye!